often the race is pretty much decided. And of course, that makes sense in one sense because huge amounts of seats are up for grabs in Ontario and Quebec, and a government can be decided before the results in BC take place. But this time, those 42 seats in BC might be critical. Let's look at the breakdown of the BC seats at dissolution. The Liberals and the NDP tied with 11 seats apiece, while the Conservatives held 17, the Greens 2, and there was one independent. That was the former Liberal, Jody Wilson-Raybould, who just joined us, who successfully ran as an independent in Leeds-Grenville in 2019. So the seats were divvied up in the last election. What about 2021? Will NDP leader Jagmeet Singh have home province advantage? Let's bring in Pollster Nik Nanos, the head of Nanos Research, and Rochelle Baker, a reporter for the National Observer. Great to have both of you here. Nick, I'll just start with you. Look, a lot of people are looking at changing numbers in Quebec, and I know you're watching that if the Bloc are surging there. But it's been a tight three-way race out in BC. What are you seeing there?
Well, you know, initially the Liberals were back on their heels in British Columbia, and the New Democrats quite strong. But now we're seeing a tightening of the race to three ways. And I think we should give a shout out to BC, because I think we will be staying up to watch the results in BC, because we're probably, or could look at seeing a weak minority government, whether Liberal or Conservative, and BCers might be tilting the balance in favor of one party or another.
Well, Rochelle, you saw Justin Trudeau out there in BC today, and he's, of course, in BC. What did he tout? Climate. He had the former Green Party leader provincially, Andrew Weaver, campaigning with him. How significant is that as an endorsement in BC?
Well, I think they consider it a real prize, and certainly Andrew Weaver in BC has a lot of clout as a climate change scientist and as the former leader of the Green Party. So of course, that's a feather in their cap. They brought him out. I noticed that alongside Trudeau in Richmond today were candidates in the Lower Mainland ridings that he really wants to make sure that the Liberals get again. Carla Quattro in Delta, of course, the Environment Minister, Jonathan Wilkinson. So, yeah, interesting. And he took that opportunity, of course, to really, it is a super tight race between the three parties across BC regionally, or across BC as a province. But that support begins to break down in kind of regional pockets. So really, he's got to prevent any sort of vote splitting and votes that typically might be his, with urban and young voters going to the NDP, but he's got to woo as many Conservative voters his way. And so in Richmond today, he was knocking hard on the Conservative Party while promoting his climate plan, of course.
Right. Yeah, Nick, how does BC play out? Like, what are the splits there? I know it's a three-way race. You've got an NDP government who's, I don't know if Mr. Horgan's actively or not putting the thumbs on the scale for Jagmeet Singh. They certainly support his position, but how are the splits looking? What are you looking at in BC?
Well, you know, the thing is that BC is like a number of provinces. You know, when you're looking at the interior of BC, it's very similar to Alberta. The Conservatives are strong there. The other thing is that Jagmeet Singh, his brand in BC is probably the strongest compared to every other part of the country. And he does exceptionally well among British Columbia voters who are under 35 years of age. And that basically cuts right into the heart of what the Liberals want to get and who they need in order to hold on. And, you know, the other thing is I would not underestimate the impact of Jody Wilson-Raybould and her book, because, you know, that is another kind of local dimension to what's happening in British Columbia. And I think the Liberals are probably happy to have that green endorsement from Weaver, because it allows them to at least have put something in the window that it's not just about disaffected and disillusioned Liberals who are unhappy with Justin Trudeau.
Yeah, and you know, often when you have a tight race, Rochelle, you got star candidates. The Liberals don't really have any big new star candidates. The NDP do. You think of Avi Lewis in a riding they've never run. Of course, he's a well-known name who's had big name endorsements. Then you got Jody Wilson-Raybould, who's got massive name recognition. She was on our program tonight, relitigating the SNC-Lavalin affair, essentially. How's that playing out?
Well, I think, you know, the timing is bad for the Liberals, of course. I don't think that's news to anybody in terms of Miss Wilson-Raybould's book coming out. And of course, that independent riding that she had, the Liberals, they may or may not get it, right? It's unlikely. And we are seeing, you know, a big bump. Some polls are suggesting 12% drop in popularity for the Liberals in BC in the last day or so since the debate. So, you know, the other thing I think that's playing out to a certain extent in the struggle, you know, I think Justin Trudeau is now highlighting his climate plan for a very good reason. He sees a weakness with the Conservatives around that, but the NDP, and then he's being somewhat, of course, both the NDP and Justin Trudeau have to be careful of the Green Party, which has the only 2 seats in BC, for the federal party here in BC on southern Vancouver Island.
Yeah, and Nick, I think Rochelle's making a great point there. Just quickly, I know Elizabeth May's running. Paul Manly's got a seat out there. Are the Greens a factor?
Well, they're a factor, but they're not standing as tall as they were. And Evan, one thing we haven't talked about, People's Party of Canada. You know, when we look at the regional numbers, the People's Party of Canada have significantly improved their standing in the province of British Columbia compared to the beginning of the campaign. That's one piece of good news for Justin Trudeau, not great for Erin O'Toole, and another wild card in what will be a wild election with split votes and multiple parties that are competitive in a key battleground, which is British Columbia.
Yeah, that People's Party of Canada has now become, in the final days, the big wild card, and we're talking a lot about that. Okay, that Nik Nanos, head of Nanos Research, Rochelle Baker from the National Observer. Great to have both of you as I'm with you. Those of us in the East will be up late, and those in the West will have a very interesting supper time as they watch the election result. All right, great to have the 2 of you on the program. I think Battleground BC is going to be absolutely critical, those 42 seats.